So we only have a few things left to do on this project. We want to put the sound file onto the bottom of the stack. So we'll go find that Monk piece of media, and I'm going to bring it all the way down here, put it underneath everything. This is typically the way audio is handled, is it's the bottom layer or the bottom track. And I'm going to say, well, where do I want it to be? I can still see where I left these keyframes on the very top layer, which is the TV or layer 1. So I think I'm going to go over to this last group of keyframes. That's that little TV thing there. And I'm going to put the end of the audio at the end of the movie. And I'm going to crank open the audio just to take a look at the decibel levels. In the in point, tapping the I key, you can see that they start at 0, but I'm just going to put that up to 12. Here's my audio window. Incidentally, you can get that by just asking for the audio window under window here. And I'm just putting that up to maybe 10 or 12, like that. There's a little bit more. And so that would be my first keyframe. And then I could go navigating over to here, just leave that at the same level until we get to the end of this little navigation here, this little animation right there. I'll set a second keyframe, and by asking for a keyframe here, this is my give me a keyframe little button. It will be the same as whatever I put on the beginning. And then at the end here of the layer, the out point of the layer, I would lower that down to a 0. Okay, so we're just sort of fading it out. That's all you really have to do with this audio. If you want to see the waveform, there it is. If you're used to doing audio editing, you can get in there and edit if you'd like. The only other thing I would recommend at this point is that I would take the layout lines and turn off the eyeball. For any layer, just like Photoshop, you can turn off or turn on the visibility by clicking the eyeball on or the eyeball off. With the audio layer, it would be the speaker on or the speaker off. Now I can't hear it, now I can. If you want to preview this with the audio playing, it's a small file. We can do it easily right here in the timeline by just asking for what's called a RAM preview. On the preview panel, it's all the way on the right here. It says RAM preview. And you'll watch this build a RAM preview line. This green line across the top is building up the RAM preview. Once it's done, then it'll play again and show you what you've got, including the audio. Okay, so those two things having been done, I'm going to go back to the endpoint, go home, function, return, and I want to export this to send it for a grade. So the easiest way to do this, just for me to see it on Blackboard, so I know you did the project, is to do an export. But depending on how you've installed your After Effects, you may not be able to find the export over here. Here's File, Export, for the MPEG-4. Now on this particular installation of After Effects, I have an MPEG-4. I have a lot of choices out here, including MPEG-4. But you may not have all those choices. So if you have the choice to export it to an MPEG-4, then go ahead and do that. But if your choices are only very limited in the file export area here, if you don't have all these choices, here's the MPEG-4, here's a QuickTime movie, here are some choices for the audio export, etc. Then you'll be better off going to the render queue. So let's just say if you have the MPEG-4 here, use it, okay? If not, then, and this is going to be fairly straightforward. The only thing I would do on this is change the frame rate for keyframes to 15 because we are recording at 15 frames per second. Okay, so that's what I would do. And then say OK, and it'll export it to the folder where you saved the project. All right. If you can't do that, because you don't have that option, then you're going to have to do a render from the render queue, and you will be choosing comp 1, which is what we're working on right now. Make sure that that is chosen here, here. Otherwise, it could just pick up anything that is live, so to speak, and use that work area as the render, and we don't want that. We want to render the entire composition. So choose comp 1, go to composition, and say you want to add it to the render queue. And again, depending on the installation you have on your computer, that may keep you inside of After Effects. Here we are with the render queue, and we're still inside After Effects. Or it may put you in the render queue in the media encoder. If you have the Adobe Media Encoder installed on your computer, it may open the render window in the encoder. But then the choices are pretty much the same anyway. You have 3 places where you can change how this is going to look. The first one I open is the render settings, and I just double click that. You get a window here. Make sure it says best and full, and make sure down here that it says that you're rendering the entire composition, not just the work area. Your work area could be shorter than the whole composition. And here it's saying to use the composition frame rate, which is correct. Here, there's nothing else that you want to change right now. So you just say OK. And that's all you need to do for that one. Then the next one is the output module. And again, I double click it to get the window to open. And in this case, this is where we could say we want to put this out as an MPEG-4. And for us, the H.264 from the Macintosh users is the same as the MPEG-4. So we're just going to say that we want the H.264. And there's not too much here you have to change. You can look for your format options, and if you have a choice here of what you want to use, these are not for us. Let's see. It's using the H.264 as the codec, which is fine. That's okay. We can say okay for that. And we're not cropping, we're not stretching. The audio output, you can modulate this to make your file smaller. I'm going to recommend that you do. Change this to 2205. That's the standard sample rate for, and you can use it as 16-bit if you'd like, doesn't matter. But you can also change it to mono because our Monk piece doesn't have any stereo on it, it's only mono. And the format options, there's very little available on this computer for me. So I'm just going to, in the audio settings here, well, it looks like it's already done for me, the audio settings. So I'm going to just say, let's see, let's look at the audio. No applicable properties. Okay. And so I'm going to say okay to that too. The only thing it's going to ask you is where do you want to put this? And again, I would put this back in the folder as, I think I was calling this one class comp 1. We don't want a space, right, in the name, so we're just going to use a dash instead. And it's saying, where do you want to put that? And I'm going to say that I want to put it in my lesson 1 folder and save. And now I have to click the render button, having set these things up. I'm going to click the render button, and you'll see that it renders across the top. I think you're kind of used to that from editing. There you go. And it'll also ask you if you want to go look at it then. You can reveal it, as they say, in the Finder. So that's the render. And then if I go back and look at what I've got here, I'm just going to find that folder on my desktop. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? There it is. AE Lessons. And this is lesson 1. And it should be something that I just put in there. There it is, class MPEG 4. Class 1 MPEG 4. And it's only 5.7 megabytes, which is really quite modest for this little movie. So that could go up to Blackboard without any difficulty. And here's what it looks like, right? I'm not getting my audio. I'm not getting any audio. I wonder if I left the audio turned off when I was demonstrating how to turn the audio off. Let's see. Get rid of the render queue here. Get rid of that. There's the audio. The audio's on. There it is. Here's my RAM preview. Okay. It's on.